A major shift in payments, but also around the whole ecosystem, what's going on with Apple. And one of the leading companies out there going into this is Coinbase. Today we're breaking down for that. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Let's get into it. Of course, many of the things that you guys have probably seen in the news. One of the big items has been Coinbase entering the S&P 500, which is kind of interesting when you look at Coinbase and their movement into the S&P 500 and what we're going to be talking about today with their team is the fact that they actually bumped out Discover Financial, a major payment platform. So a lot of times what we've talked about here on the show is really where some of the integrations of, and as you guys know, kind of the Apple tax concept for any developer that's building within the Apple ecosystem, that has pretty much gone away. But here's Tim Sweeney talking about Fortnite. Fortnite, of course, has not necessarily returned to the App Store just yet. And it's been a little bit of a waiting game between Tim Sweeney and Apple. Kind of interesting here, I think, going forward. I've got a clip here, guys, that I want to go to that is talking about where not only the Apple situation is brewing, but how this may be affecting developers, including payment developers, possibly within the Coinbase ecosystem. Take a look.
The Apple tax is officially dead. This is the biggest thing to happen in payments in probably years. And we're already seeing developers use Coinbase Commerce and crypto rails to save 29% plus on every single purchase. Absolutely game changing. This is an app I've been playing with called Block Party, and I want to go into their app store and buy some gems. And are giving a 10% gem bonus to users who pay with crypto. And you'll see, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to buy 121 gems. It's going to open directly in-app. I've already logged in, and so it should jump me right to my USDC. Click Pay Now and get those extra gems in my wallet. This team told me it took them less than half of a day to ship this integration, and the developer is saving 29% on every single purchase. And as a buyer, I'm getting extra gems. This is the future of money. We're early, but we're just getting started.
All right, so you can kind of see the impact is going to be pretty critical, I think, around the industry, and it's just getting started. So joining me today is Dan Kim and Nemil Dalal, who are coming in from the Coinbase team. How are you guys?
Good, great to be here, Paul. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you. How about you, Nemil?
Awesome to be on the show, Paul. Really appreciate it.
We're going to have a lot of discussion today that is really at the forefront of what's happening with payments. Coinbase has really started to accelerate, for obvious reasons, into the stablecoin market, and where this plays out, I think, into really kind of the dynamics of not only gaming, but online e-commerce. Dan, I know your background in the restaurant industry. I'm kind of interested in this point right here. This, of course, is Epic, and they're starting to already take advantage of this extra value of being able to utilize a payment system that has not been pretty much kind of hand-strapped because of the Apple ecosystem. When you look at the amount of developers, like the clip we just did, talking about Coinbase Commerce coming in, how big of a point do you think that's going to be for new devs coming into the market, Dan?
Well, I mean, taking a step back, the thing that we're excited about is just the role that stablecoins are going to have in everyday life and everyday transactions. I think, like we're looking at Nemil here with us. He was actually one of the original product managers who worked on USDC here at Coinbase. So we're very excited to see things like this because it just validates the role that crypto has in things that we do every day, whether it's playing games or going to restaurants. I think we're at like $10 trillion of annual settlements on stablecoins now this past year. It's about 10 times the size of the remittance market globally. So I think this is a pretty serious role that stablecoins are now playing across the financial stack. And what this signals is the world is ready for change. The world is ready for things that work better, faster, more efficiently. And it's not just benefiting developers, right? It's benefiting customers, users, players. And that's probably the thing that's most exciting to us is this just validates the credibility of crypto and stablecoins and how useful they can be in our lives.
How fast, Nemil, do you think we'll see more devs really adapting kind of to this new frontier of payment? We're already starting to see it in the gaming ecosystem. What would be next? What are you guys seeing coming down the pipeline?
So first of all, let me just take a step back, Paul, and say 10 years ago, this market did not exist. There was essentially zero. And
Right.
I remember when I took over USDC, it was maybe about 100 million in market cap, 200 million at the time. So today the
Yeah.
market cap is 60 billion plus for USDC alone. That's just one stablecoin. And as Dan said, in a matter of just a few years, we went from 1 trillion in annual volume to 10 trillion. So if anyone who's used to tech, we're used to exponential growth, and that's what I
Yeah.
expect over the next several years is the amount of adoption of USDC. We're just getting started, and we've seen a lot of announcements from folks like Stripe and others that are embracing this technology. So we're really, really excited about that. And then I think there's a few different use cases to your question that we're personally really excited about. Number one is just, as we said, of humans paying for different things. So there's no Apple tax, but there's also no other taxes, for example, credit card fees and things like that that are part of it. And we're expecting large merchants to start embracing this and adopting it in the coming months and years. There's another area which we just announced, X402, and that allows machines to be able to pay for things. And again, this sounds like science fiction, it sounds super futuristic, but the reality is that like AI is a machine. And we're seeing more and more examples of agentic commerce where AI is paying for different sets of things on behalf of a human. And this is another really great example for stablecoins. So happy to talk about that more, but those are just two use cases that we're pretty excited about.
You mentioned something though, Nemil, that I think is dear to my heart, and that is the merchant fees, which mostly affect retailers. One of the biggest retail sectors out there being the restaurant industry. Dan and I, that's where we ended up meeting, gosh, over a decade ago, maybe longer, Dan. But the point is that you're talking about a significant amount of fees that are done within the restaurant industry. If you look on average sales unit volume, around $1.8 million per year. And if you look at the amount of fees that are charged for credit card and debit, et cetera, I mean, these are significant amounts. First of all, Dan, do you think that that is going to have a quick uptake from merchants ready to jump into utilizing USDC via the Coinbase platform?
Absolutely. And Paul, you know this as much as I do. One of the things I hated when I was in the restaurant space was seeing the signs in the stores saying, you got to buy a minimum of $5 or $10 before they accept a credit card,
right.
Or they don't accept credit cards with rewards, or they don't accept American Express. And it was just really painful to see that, because a lot of customers that we did service when we were in the industry, wanted the convenience of being able to just tap and pay. So technologies like this isn't, obviously it's going to save a bunch of money, but I think it's going to really deliver on what customers want and how they want to pay without the friction that just hasn't changed in decades, right? So super excited about this. And I think once people get it, and once there's a growing number of users who have stablecoins and using them is going to be super easy, merchants are going to adopt that very quickly. And we're already seeing this, in agentic commerce, obviously, but even in online purchases of higher ticket items where people are more comfortable paying with crypto. We're seeing these vendors and retailers start to accept crypto. So I think once we get past that hurdle and get to everyday use cases like buying a cup of coffee or buying a cup of frozen yogurt back in the day, I think you'll see quick adoption from operators and restaurants.
Listen, it's going to be, this is something we've talked about on the show quite a bit over the last few years, is that, in my opinion, this is really going to be the killer app for crypto, is payments. And the companies that really accelerate on it, I think, are going to be the ones that kind of differentiate, from all the rest. We've already seen with you guys entering the S&P 500, many other banks are probably going to be looking at this model as well. Coinbase Commerce could be at the center of all of this. So a lot happening around this. Nemil, I want to talk a little bit about X402. So this was over on your developer platform Twitter account. Excited to introduce X402. This is an open source payment protocol that you guys are doing. First of all, explain it to me. Give me an understanding of why developers would utilize this in lieu of maybe other options for payment rails.
Yeah, so let's just start with the stablecoin. Stablecoin is in a lot of ways just like a dollar. It's a dollar that lets you move it on crypto. And what X402 is like in the traditional economy, you might have credit card rails, and then you have your dollars that can move on those rails. The internet did not have these money movement rails. And so what we've done is we created a way to make it super easy to use money, like stable coins, to be able to pay for different sets of things online. So we're bringing crypto online for anyone to use. And a lot of this started for us with something called Agent Kit, where we made it super easy for any AI agent to get a wallet. And what we found was those AI agents wanted to pay for things. They wanted to either buy things for their users. They wanted to be able to send money around. But in a lot of ways, it was very hard to be able to access an API or to pay for a micropayment for just a few cents. And this is just a simple standard. It's not owned by Coinbase. It's a simple standard that anyone can use and integrate with.
I'm looking at the kind of the spec page here on Gitbook, so you can kind of see a little bit more about it. If you're a developer out there, this is going to be one of the, I think, the breakthroughs that payments have not seen in the past. So the fact that this is going to be so easy to start integrating, you're mentioning agentic AI, and this is something, we've had the BYTE team on before. This team, of course, came on, we talked, I'm sure you guys know them, but they of course have already started to implement USDC. BYTE, for those of you who are watching, go back and search our videos, just BYTE AI. And really what this is doing is giving you the ability to almost go directly into ordering food, utilizing agentic AI agents, and then integrating that into Coinbase or other payment systems. Obviously here they're showing USDC. Dan, this would be unbelievable for restaurants. If I'm looking at this as a potential opportunity, my gosh, I imagine, what would you do with this if you were back in the restaurant business right now?
You know, it would change a lot. First of all, I think the economics would be much better.
Yeah.
I was franchising back then, and margins are very important to operators, and 3% actually means a lot. And if you're in more affluent neighborhoods, we had restaurants where 80% of these tickets, which were $10 or less, came from credit card transactions, and that adds up. So, I think the beauty of this is it's the simplicity, and it just removes the friction of credit card-based payments that merchants and consumers pay. I think tap to pay definitely has made things easier in store, but let's take a look at online commerce, right? You can't tap to pay when you're actually on a website. You got to get a pop-up, you got to subscribe, you got to enter a 16-digit number, and it's just a lot of friction. Now, that's friction for the human being. And if you couldn't move that over to AI agents trying to do things for humans, the only other option you have today is giving that credit card number to an agent, which means putting it somewhere on your computer, not very secure, right? So what this unlocks is what we call programmatic access to payments and the ability to receive payments, meaning if I want to go out there and spend $100 to buy information or resources that I need, why can't I just authorize an agent to do that and spend that on my behalf without me giving them a credit card number that can potentially be exploited if it falls into the wrong hands? So, I think we get better security, the ability to have agents buy and sell things. And I think this is one of the most important things that excites me about X4 too, is you can now start to charge things that cost less than 50 cents or whatever the minimum value transaction that credit cards can support. So imagine being able to sell things for a penny or even under a penny, and even fractionalizing data sets that that might be better served if you were to just break it down to little pieces. Then it becomes very interesting because you don't have the fees that come with transaction-based payments that credit cards typically charge.
Yeah, I want to get into that a little bit because this is going to get into some very intriguing advantages for retailers, but also for just every other, everyday people that are shopping and using e-commerce in general. But I want to jump back to the AI integration, especially around agentic AI and a lot of the agent side of things that we're seeing. Nemil, first of all, you get a chance to work with these developers. Are you seeing an influx of AI agent teams starting to come to the developer platform for building in this kind of framework?
Yeah, so we've had more than 20,000 AI agents launched in just the last several months, all with a crypto wallet associated with them. So that's thousands of developers that are starting to integrate this. And let me just maybe go through a few example use cases that we've seen. One really simple one is I am someone building an AI agent, and I want to be able to make money on the blockchain. So there are all these different opportunities to earn yield, to trade, et cetera. Just like the stock market, that are hedge funds that that have smart algorithms that trade. That's what I want to be able to build. So that's a really one simple example of what people have been building. Another example is I want to be able to talk to a human and help them buy whatever they want to buy. And I really love this example of like a travel agent where you're basically going to a trip and you want to be able to buy airplane tickets, you want to be able to buy your hotel, et cetera, et cetera. All of that can be done in one conversation with an AI agent. But on the other side, like Dan was saying, if they need a credit cards are made for humans. You might have to sign up for it as a human. While the blockchain is super, super easy because anyone can access it. You don't need to, a human or a machine can be able to access it. So those are just two examples of the types of things that people have been building with these AI agents.
So I'm looking at Virtuals protocol right now. This is just showing, because a lot of people, we talk about Virtuals quite a bit. In general, just AI agents and use cases. Would Virtuals be able to take advantage of this new developer connection, I guess, within the Coinbase ecosystem?
Yeah, so we're super excited about what Virtuals is doing. For your listeners who may not know, Virtuals basically is a way to build an online character and then have it have a wallet. And you can be able to send money to that wallet. They can send you money. They can send money around the world. But these are really powerful personalities. And so where this gets really interesting is that they built on AgentKit when they launched this. So this is just open source tooling that Coinbase Developer Platform provided. And they built on that. And now what we want to do is extend that further. So when these AI agents wanted to pay for APIs, they wanted to pay for goods, that was super difficult still because most things don't support crypto. But with this internet native payment standard, suddenly the whole internet can support it. And again, what we need is we need people who run APIs, we need developers to be able to integrate X402. But if they do that, suddenly AI agents can come and spend at their platform, which is where we get really excited. I think this could be really big for Virtuals.
So, okay, so I want to extend that just a second, because you look at the use case of voice over the last decade with Siri, Alexa, et cetera. Now you have the potential here where AI agents could be commanded via voice, just like we showed with BYTE. The likelihood of Apple being able to integrate something like agents into Siri, would that be something that we could see happen pretty soon, even if it's not Apple or itself? Or do you think the AI agents will come, to social platforms or just general e-commerce platforms where every restaurant could have an agent out there? What are the models that you think are going to hit the market, Nemil?
Some of the examples that I think, so this is all speculation, and I think in the case of something like Siri, my sense is anyone who's running a product like that is thinking about how to make AI first and to have an AI personality that you talk to. You can already do this with ChatGPT, and I think just like Alexa, just like Siri, all of these will be AI agents and AI personalities that probably know you super well, right, and know the details of your lives, and over time have all these details when you're asking for a request, and so have all that contextual information. But in addition to that, I think there's also this example of I'm going to a merchant and I want to be able to ask them something. It's like a customer service flow, it's a purchase flow. They may not be my personal agent, but they actually can interact with me and talk to me as well. And I think that is a really good example where BYTE AI did that. What they ordered, I think they ordered some chicken wings, was a good example of what they did in their demo.
Right.
That's absolutely another example that we see. Candidly, like the internet, there are lots of different things that will coexist. I think in a very similar way, you're going to have multiple models here. And some of these, you can talk to them and they'll order everything on your behalf, but there'll be other sites that maybe don't support it, that have their own custom functionality, and you're talking to that AI agent directly, and it's associated directly just with that site.
So, I mean, the opportunity here is pretty crazy in terms of size. If you look at, we'll just take the restaurant industry for an example. Now, you're talking about over $1 trillion a year in terms of just revenue in the United States alone, $4 trillion worldwide. I'm looking at your old website here, Dan, brings back old memories, Red Mango. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, Red Mango needs to have Coinbase Commerce on here. So this should be your first phone call, right?
It should be. It absolutely should be. But, we're really excited about, earlier you had mentioned about use cases. I think agentic commerce is definitely one of them. The other one that I personally would love to see is how many times have you come across an article and you wanted to read it, and then it gets all masked and says, hey, if you subscribe for a year,
yes, yeah, exactly.
A week, by the way. And I'm thinking, okay, I could pay $1 for this, but what if I forget to unsubscribe? And now I have this thing that's going to be impossible to get rid of. But you know what? I'd probably pay $2 or even more just to read that article. And I can't do that today. Imagine a world where I authorize my wallet to spend up to $50 a day on whatever it needs to get information that it needs. And once I hit that limit, I can either reload it or say, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. And that's, I think, the most interesting use case for humans is just getting rid of that friction that we often see and when buying things online.
Well, you're hitting on a big topic we've talked about here before, and that is streaming payments. On the creator side or the publisher side, I've been in the media business for almost 2.5 decades now. And that has been one of the challenges of being able, especially when you're going direct to consumer, of being able to get payments, whether it's through subscriptions, et cetera. But I think streaming, when you look at the power of creator payments, in the past, people have kind of looked at, oh, well, maybe it's going to be Bitcoin or Ethereum or another, digital asset out there. But USDC now gets into the realm of, hey, this is just like any other dollar that I would be receiving. This is going to really open up some opportunities. I think the podcasting world could probably do very well. I know there's been attempts at this, but we haven't seen anything solid yet. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. Let's talk about Pectra, because there's a huge upgrade happening right now. This came in from your X account right there. The point is that this upgrade enables a lot of provisioning with these new validators, which we've talked about here on the show. This is also going to be reward the auto compounding, withdrawals, which is going to change things dramatically. We've already seen that happening with Ethereum. Maybe Pectra is why we're seeing ETH explode right now on the charts. But how much, Nemil, will this truly impact what you guys are doing, the Pectra upgrade at Coinbase, and the developers that are starting to utilize this ecosystem?
Yeah, so for folks who may not know, we have a staking API at Coinbase developer platform. You can check it out and you can stake. And we have supported Ethereum from the very start. And we think this is just going to supercharge people who want to be able to stake. So the increase in the validator limits from 32 to 2048, suddenly you don't need to spin up as many validators. This is so much easier to be able to do. And so we're going to be supporting that on day one. The auto compounding is probably like the biggest one. And I think like myself and probably others of your audience have probably had that process of like, I received my rewards and I need to restake them. This is something that makes it much, much easier to get the highest reward and yield for your assets. So we're really excited to support this out of the gate. We think staking, we want to make it super easy for everyone to be able to use. And candidly, we think more and more people are going to want to stake as a result of innovations like this.
Yeah, I think this will be a big leap forward within not only the ETH ecosystem, but I think in general it's going to move crypto in the right direction. I want to jump back over to ease of use and onboarding, because this is something that this industry, the crypto industry, has struggled with, and that is getting everyday people active within DeFi or just active on, getting a Coinbase wallet or even opening a Coinbase account. I'm looking at Uniswap. Now we've got one-click swaps. This is available on the web for you guys. I know many of you are waiting for the web app or the Uniswap app itself, but smart wallets all coming too. I think it's getting ready to drop here shortly. This will change things as far as the user experience, which is one of the big challenges that I've said has to be overcome. Nemil, when you're working with devs, and I want to get to you, Dan, about this very point, when you're working with devs and they're trying to solve these UX issues, is that like number one on their list right now to make this super easy for onboarding?
This is one of the biggest pain points that we hear about. It's that and it's security, and how do I make sure the funds are secure, for my users. But like just by comparison, there's 25 million developers building on the web, Paul. There's maybe 50,000 or 75,000 that are in crypto. And one big part of it, building on chain, is the fact that it's just difficult. It's difficult for the developers. It's difficult for the end users. Right. And that's where Coinbase Developer Platform comes in, is to make that experience. One is easier for the developers. So it's easier for them to build. You don't need many, many years of building, like in professional industry to be able to build. A lot of great people like Mark Zuckerberg and others weren't people who had 10, 20 years of experience in software engineering. And so that's exactly what we want to do, is make it easier for them. But then what we're doing is building experiences that make it easier for the end users themselves. And so on this, this is an example where there's some really powerful things the Ethereum ecosystem is doing to be able to make this easier. And all blockchain ecosystems are starting to think about, how do I make the right low-level, primitives available that make this super easy for my end users to do. And then we're building tooling that makes it super easy as well. So for example, in the past, you had to have a seed phrase and you had to write that down. And there's no other experience in the web that we're used to something like that. But the power of the new wallets that are coming are that you don't need that. There are things like passkeys. There are things like username and password that make this much easier. And then the last thing I'll say, Paul, which we don't talk a lot about, is that scalability and fees have come down a ton. So in the Ethereum ecosystem, at least the layer 2 base has really meant that fees have gone down, to a few cents at maximum. And the joke I have is imagine a world where for every 5 minutes of a Netflix video, you have to pay a few dollars every single time. That's kind of what the on-chain experience was a few years ago. But with all this innovation at the layer 1 level, with layer 2s, and with the developer tools that Coinbase Developer Platform is offering, all that is so much easier so that a user may not even see that request, or they'll see it once and they're giving it, in advance for all the different actions they want to do. So like, I don't know, just like the early internet, like I think about like the early days of the internet versus where we are today with mobile phones and AI. That's exactly the shift that's gone on in crypto over the last few years.
So Dan, when I totally agree with you, Nemil. I think for us to leap forward, those are the kind of things that have to take place. And it feels like maybe for the first time, at least in the past 7 years that we've been really tracking this, is it's finally coming around to reality. And Dan, when you're faced with dealing with not only merchants, but all sorts of online e-commerce companies that are now starting to integrate potential crypto payments, Coinbase Commerce. So this has been kind of I will say a slow moving ship that seems to be right at the point now for big growth. I was looking at this company right here, Actual. They're talking about getting invoices paid in stablecoins on Base. So this is a good example of just one, but the point is this is a new kind of company. So do you think that we're going to see a lot of the new e-commerce companies kind of taking off with it? Or do you think we'll see the Web 2.0 companies, including merchants, adapt to it? What's going to happen first, I guess, in terms of kind of next layer?
Well, I think the Web3 companies or the on-chain native companies are already accepting payments with USDC where they can, and they're kind of expanding non-on-chain payments to appeal to those who might not know about crypto, but the learning curve is obviously very steep. But I think where the most of the growth is going to come from is the big Web2 companies, if you will. All the major brands that people know around the world, they're definitely going to be leaning in, if they're not already, into accepting payments. I think regulatory uncertainty in the past was a big barrier. Now that that's starting to fade away, we're getting a lot of inbound from companies that were very conservative even just a year ago.
Yeah.
Leaning in and saying, look, we got to get to this action. Like, stablecoins are real. We don't want to miss out. And this is no longer about, just reaching out to the crypto audience. This is about a fundamental transformational shift from, a US dollar, a fiat-based system, to a much more technologically advanced unit of value that we're calling stablecoins. And I think businesses, especially those that kind of get it and are feeling a lot more secure about the regulatory framework, they are definitely leaning in. And I think this is the year where, it's going to be a make or break year for a lot of brands. And this is the year to plant flags, in my opinion.
Well, it's going to be one that I think is going to continue to grow, because you just look at the float of a regular merchant transaction, of the time from a credit card swipe to the time that's in your bank account with the fees associated. And that's on a carded present situation, much less the e-commerce side of it. Then you have banks that are out there floating checks between banks. I just saw this happen the other day, where a cashier's check going into a bank had a 7-day hold. A cashier's check.
Makes no sense.
So imagine if you're just paying that in USDC. It's instantaneous, it's right there, very low fees. Those are the kind of things I think that are going to continue to explode. I'm looking at Base right now, along with Ethereum, and this is reference to USDC. I'll kind of zoom in on this. And you look at the big ones. There's Base starting to eat away at what appears to be maybe more off of Solana. Do you think it's going to be, I guess, Nemil, this is a question for you. Do you think we're at maybe a tipping point here with Base developers, that we could see a domino effect really start to control how USDC is being transacted?
We're super excited about the Base community and just how many developers there, just how excited they are about the power of stablecoins and what can be done. And that actual example you showed was a really good example of just one team that's been thinking about how they can do this. I would just say is the big shift that's going to happen in the next few years is a huge shift from traditional finance and traditional fiat to on-chain crypto. And the version we think about this is that a dollar on-chain is better in all these different ways: low fees, instantaneous settlement, than anything else. And the power of Base is 200 millisecond block times, all these other things that they're innovating on to make this super easy to be able to, cheap to send, and also to be able to do it really, really quickly. That's, I think, going to be super powerful for developers.
Yeah.
And we're already seeing that with developers using Coinbase Developer Platform.
I'm excited about it. I think this is going to be one of the critical things maybe in our lifetime that we've seen in the financial system for businesses overall. So, and it's so cool to be part of this. Dan, I'm sure you're very excited about all this. I want to ask one question to each of you, and that is, what is the most important thing right now, do you feel, especially as related to payments, that matter the most? Could be agentic AI, could be merchant services. Dan, we'll start with you. What do you think is most important right now?
I think it's getting the world to understand what USDC and stablecoins are, and to understand crypto in a way that is relevant to a lot of people out there. And I think you, me, Nemil, we talk about it on a daily basis, and we're very comfortable with it. But I think for the average person, there's still a lot to unpack there.
Right.
And crypto traditionally hasn't been very helpful in simplifying things. I think now we're going to start to see that change, because the driver there is a large number of people that have yet to be onboarded into crypto. And I think our job is to really help the world understand why USDC and why crypto makes sense.
It's going to happen, man. I know it is. How about you, Nemil? What do you think most important, especially from the developer side?
I always think in one way, is that developers. This is the old Steve Ballmer quote. But I think the biggest thing for them is, how do you make it easy and simple? If it's super easy to be able to do this, this is a no-brainer, right? Because we talked about the fees, we talked about the instantaneous settlement, but you also have to make the developer experience super easy. And that's where we're spending a ton of time, is how do you make sure it's secure? Like, that's another really big issue with crypto in general, is how do you absolutely make sure that it's impossible for you to be able to hack this? Those are the types of things that we think about for developers. So I think ease of experience, and how do you create a great security experience out of the box, those are probably the two key areas where we're focusing a lot. We spend a ton of time talking to developers, and I would just say is, in 10 plus years in crypto, this is the moment when I've just seen the developer interest probably among the highest that it's ever been. And I think in the earlier years of crypto, they're often 6 months or 12 months of hype around something. But the cool thing with stablecoins is, like, it's here to stay.
Right.
Like, I think this is just going to accelerate rather than be a stop-start like other parts of crypto are.
No doubt. I think, when I look at it, I'm very excited, especially when you bring in payments and this whole evolution of agentic AI. And what we'll see in true use cases of agents, mainly because we've watched the BYTE team succeed, but I've also seen companies out there that have done some very intriguing things around, loyalty. If you look at the loyalty platforms, Boba guys, I know that's on Solana, but a good example of those kinds of companies that have started to integrate crypto even more. Blackbird with fine dining, who's started to go into that. There is so much here, but agents is where it's going to be. That's my prediction going out there. Hopefully it's going to be riding on base. And of course, with virtuals, we got to get virtuals listed on Coinbase. When's that going to happen?
We love the team. Paul. And we're currently talking to them about X402, and they're a very, very bright team that has a really good vision about the future, and we're very close partners. So.
I love the good sidestep there, Dan. You're as usual a master at media. I love it. Anyway, Nemil and Dan Kim, great to have you guys on the show. Thanks so much. You guys are welcome back anytime as things start to develop over there at Coinbase. Let us know. We'll get you back.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Paul. Great to be here.
Excellent. All right, you guys, if you're not part of the Diamond Circle, get in right now. That's our own private group, and you can be a part of that. Tens and tens of thousands of people are in there. And of course, if you want to, kind of talk to me directly, well, you can do that over in our Telegram group. We always leave a link down below. Watch out for the weird ones. We only have one, so check it out down there, and follow me on X @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.